listening to SuperPower Mommas on the SuperPower Up podcast, the show that embraces the art of soulful parenting.
Hello and welcome, everyone. You're listening to SuperPower Mommas, and I'm Laura Greco, your host. Today, our show is about parenting with confidence versus perfectionism. So I am so excited to have Jody here with me. Jody Johnston Pawel is a licensed social worker in the state of Ohio and a certified family life educator through the National Council of Family Relations and the CEO of Parents Toolshop Consulting. She empowers parents to become even more conscious, mindful, and effective by using her unique holistic system called the Universal Blueprint for Parenting Success. And I am so excited. I've known Jody for a couple of years now and really have enjoyed some interaction together as time goes on. So welcome, Jody. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for the invitation. It's really great to reconnect, and I'm excited to connect with your audience today.
Yeah, and I'm excited for them to get to know you better. You have a lot more information about what you're doing with parents, and so I'm excited to have this brought out as we talk about this parenting with confidence versus perfectionism.
Yeah,
it's almost like the elephant in the room, you know?
it is, and it's a really core mindset that everything else will build on. Because it becomes very much a part of our parenting style. So, and your parenting style is kind of like the freeway that you take on your parenting journey. Mm-hmm. And the tools are things you just get along the way, but you want them to kind of all fit and take you closer towards your destination or your goals.
Yeah, very nice way to put it. Well, as always on SuperPower Mommas, we always ask, because you're a mom too. You're a mom of how many children now?
I'm a mom of 2 adult kids, and now I'm a grandma of 2.
Yay.
So I've launched 2 and am supporting the launching of 2. They're local, so I'm very blessed to be able to see them often.
And you've been immersed in your work for many, many years. So
yeah, for 30. Well, actually, since I was 8, but yeah, professionally for 30 years, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
It makes me sound 100 years old to say like I've been doing it for 50 years or something crazy like that.
Oh, yeah. But it's okay, right?
It's definitely my first language. My parents were parent educators when I was growing up. They were maybe among the first 50 parent educators in the country. So I was very fortunate to learn effective parenting language and tools as kind of my first language.
Yeah.
But my personality certainly brought in my challenges in terms of being a parent. And actually, when we were talking about the topic of perfectionism, that for me was a big issue within my own personality in becoming a parent who didn't necessarily pass that on to my kids in a way that would make them crazy.
Right, that's what we're all about, right?
It's hard being around a perfectionist.
It is. It's hard to be one too, actually. It's very taxing.
It is.
But what I'd like to ask you, first of all, we always ask our guests this, like, what's your superpower? What would you identify as a superpower you have used?
I would probably say that my ability to read kids and really just people and relationships, based on what I know, I'm able to kind of detect and intuit things that I can do very quickly. And of course, my system helps me do that too. And then as I take in lots of information, I'm always learning and always taking in lots of information. And then I learn best by teaching it to others. So I also have a real knack for being able to collect information, assimilate it, organize it, and then present it in a real systematic way that everybody can learn it, but they can apply it in a totally individualized way. And I didn't realize that was kind of a superpower until I've gotten older and tried to help other people replicate that. And I realized that's a real talent and skill that I've got that's kind of unique.
Yeah, and it's really something I think I remember from our other conversations that's actually what they want. Someone commissioned you to write a book around these systems. Is that correct?
Well, I just kind of on my own came up with the Universal Blueprint for Parenting Success. And as that started going from just local classes to then people finding it really helpful and sharing it with their relatives around the country and around the world, then people started asking, well, would this also work like in my marriage? Would this also work to improve my business relationships and that kind of thing? And so it was probably around 2011, I actually kind of officially, after 10-year, we did a 10-year long research project with parents, and about 80% of them said that they were able to successfully use the system, not only with their kids, but with other children and in adult relationships. So I really started testing the way I did my original system, how that would work in adult relationships, and partnered with about 10 experts in different adult relationships to take a look at a similar system. And there really was not that much difference. Obviously, you don't discipline your spouse. So there were, there's a few things in terms of there's like 3 questions and 5 steps in parenting. There's just 4 questions when it comes to adult relationships. And it really just has to do with what kind of relationship are you in. But everything that I teach is really based on human behavior and human communication. And we are all first and foremost humans. And so you kind of start there, and then we start getting more individual in terms of our personalities, in terms of the circumstances, what our beliefs are. And all of those is where in my personal growth, where I started learning more about the science of consciousness and our perceptions of reality and things like that, that I really started seeing a crossover in terms of the spiritual aspect of parenting, and how parenting and just all relationships in themselves are so much a part of our own self-growth and our own healing, sometimes of our own childhood, and some of our own kind of imperfections, and which we can get into the whole discussion about whether or not there really is such a thing as perfection and imperfection, that depending on how high you want to go. But yeah, that certainly is a big part of it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said the science of consciousness.
Yeah.
Because that's a word that's thrown around a lot. So I want to expand on that a little, huh?
Sure. Yeah. Because I was raised, my mom was the director of Christian education in our church. I was raised in actually a very positive Christian environment. And then as I was an adult, I started becoming more familiar with metaphysics. And then I've always been very research-based. I'm all about, using our intuition and being really in touch with our emotions. But I've also seen some people get really sidelined in a way that isn't healthy for their children or their parenting by for example, I was just teaching a workshop over the weekend. I teach foster parents in Ohio, and we were talking about core values and how your belief system can create your sense of reality. And a parent asked, well, shouldn't we be teaching our children some core beliefs? Because we were kind of talking about when you teach children what to think instead of how to think, how they can kind of just blindly follow. And we were talking about, I may be getting off track here, but I live 10 minutes away from Dayton, and in the last week or two, we had the mass shootings here. So this has been a really big topic in the Ohio area where I'm from. And so we were talking about, how can you have, good kids who kind of go down that pathway? And a big part of it has to do with if they're trained to just blindly believe what they're told to believe, then they can get exposed to other beliefs that might not be healthy for them, terrorist or, those kinds of hateful kinds of beliefs. And there's a psychology behind what those folks use to get people to buy in and to follow what they do. And so it's really important for us to teach children how to think. And this really does tie in with perfectionism, because one of the beliefs behind the perfectionistic parent is that I know the right way to do everything. And my way is the right way. So it's not just the way I do things, but the way that I think, the way that I believe. And if you don't believe that, if you don't follow what I believe is the right way to think, be, and do, then I judge you for that. I judge you as being wrong. And sometimes we'll use tactics like guilt trips and shame and those kinds of things to kind of guilt you into, well, if you're a smart person, then you're going to believe this. Well, if you're wrong if you believe this and I'm the right. What I'm doing is right. So in our brain, the science of that is that our brain always wants to be right. So however our subconscious gets programmed, whatever those beliefs are, that becomes our operating system that says, this is what's right. And then the brain goes out and it filters all the information that comes in, and it sorts out anything that doesn't validate what we believe to be right. So we get this lens on the world that we believe is the accurate lens of our perception of reality. And then our brain, literally, there's a part of the brain called the RAS system. It's the reticular activating system, and it sorts what data gets in and what gets out. And it literally will not ignore anything that doesn't fit our current beliefs. And then we do things like, we get on Facebook or whatever. We choose our media. We choose our social media. We choose our friends. We choose, based upon who validates that my belief system is right. And so this leads to this perfectionism can really lead to, in the more extreme forms, to this righteous, self-righteous attitude that I'm always right and I'm better than you, and anyone who doesn't agree with me is wrong. And it can be really damaging to relationships, and it can also literally be damaging to ourselves and our bodies, because it can lead to more toxic emotions. That judgment and criticism and shame and all those kinds of things create toxic biochemicals, which can then actually lead to dis-ease and all kinds of stress-related attitudes. And anyone who's a recovering perfectionist like I am, and I jokingly say I'm in recovery, is anyone who's recovering from perfectionism can attest to how stressful it is to be a perfectionist, even if you're only a perfectionist with yourself.
Very beautiful lead in to what we're going to talk about after our break. Thank you so much, Jody, for sharing all of that.
Welcome.
I would like to, before we go for break, just give everyone an opportunity to be able to visit you. Where can they go?
They can go to parentstoolshop.com. And I'll give you a couple of freebies as we go through our talk today, that after parentstoolshop.com, you put a / and I'll give you a couple of resources that you can go out and get for free to support what we're talking about today.
Beautiful. Well, you got to stay with us then, everyone, because we're going to be right back and continue our discussion in parenting with confidence versus perfectionism. You're listening. Just hang on. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Don Rekla, Executive Director of SuperPower Experts, and we want to thank each of you for making SuperPower Up the #1 podcast network for personal development and spiritual growth. Because people like you have the courage to say that mindfulness, healthy living, disrupting reality, the pursuit of consciousness, responsible entrepreneurship, and radical parenting matter, we now amass over 1 million downloads monthly in more than 90 countries. Our numbers keep growing because there are far more people willing to live divergently than mass media wants to acknowledge. For you, the change makers, the light bearers, the way showers, we say thank you. If you're ready to take the next step in your evolution, go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower quiz. And as Neva Lee Rekla, our youngest podcaster, likes to remind us, remember, we all have superpowers and we can change the world.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm speaking with Jody Johnston Pawel on the topic of parenting with confidence versus perfectionism. You're listening to SuperPower Mommas. So, yes, before we went on the break, Jody, you were talking about the recovering perfectionism, perfectionist. And it hit me while you were talking about that. I know in my experience also, we grow up in situations where we've felt some kind of pain or disease about, things that we've experienced. And it sort of, at least for me, created this need to do it better and do it right, and yet that wasn't very supportive to me. I know that. And I'm imagining a lot of other mamas are feeling the same way. So I really love that you brought that out.
Yeah.
Expand in that direction.
Absolutely. I think being a superwoman, it used to just be a super mom. Now we've got to be super women. and
everything.
And girls, girls historically and culturally, generally, are under a lot of pressure to be perfect in a lot of ways. It's anger is not becoming to you, and so you're not allowed to feel that. And you've got to be the perfect wife and the perfect mother and the perfect cook, and so there are a lot of messages. One of the really interesting things, and this comes from one of many scientists, but a lot of folks who listen to your show are probably familiar with Bruce Lipton, who wrote The Biology of Belief. And he has this wonderful video on YouTube called Conscious Parenting. And one of the things that he shares in there is that from the age of 0 to 6, everything that we hear, see, experience gets directly downloaded into our subconscious beliefs without any filtering, because our brains really are not capable at those ages of consciously processing and filtering and interpreting what's being told to us for us to say, no, I don't have to be perfect. We just take it all in based on whatever our developmental stage is. And our brain waves are about the same as an adult in a hypnagogic state. So it's very open to the power of suggestion. So if you think about little kids, you say something and they just mimic right after you and you go, oh, that's a little sponge, Well, that's where a lot of us get our beliefs about perfectionism. Somebody might not have said you have to be perfect. No, it's possible nobody ever said that, but they were just trying to, quote, help us improve, or, quote, help us be our best. And we interpret that as I'm not good enough, or, especially if we do our best and someone still finds fault. There are people and there are generations and there are cultures who believe they're doing you a disservice if they don't criticize you. So, but that isn't really the way, we all are human beings first. And so the way that the human mind and the human psyche and emotion are developed, when you look at emotional development and social development and brain development and all of that, it really operates much better on positive, not rewards, but positive, of, telling children what to do instead of what not to do, teaching them how to do it, giving them the skills so they can know how to think and figure things out. But yet at those early stages and ages, it really is important what we say to children. You can't just take that blank slate sponge and go, okay, so you go figure out what your value is about something. You can't say that to a 3-year-old. They're at the stage and the age until about 7 to 9, when it's the age of reason, that it is important for us to say, here's how life works. Here's what rules are. You need to operate in structure. And so we do want to teach them effective ways of doing things, but be really careful about that perfectionism piece of it, because the other thing we want them to know how to handle is being imperfect, because that's what human beings are. We are imperfect. We are going to make mistakes. And if they never make a mistake, then they're not going to know how to handle a mistake.
Right. And that's a beautiful thing, because, owning our own mistakes or where we need to adjust can really teach our children so much.
Absolutely.
By our own example. And actually, isn't it true that in life, our successes are built on our mistakes, the various mistakes we've made to get where we want to be?
Absolutely. We'd be sitting in the dark if Thomas Edison gave up when he failed.
Exactly.
Right? Like I think he said, he failed thousands of times before he finally succeeded. And so when you can learn from those mistakes and not be shamed by them, it's a wonderful blessing. To be able to learn from your mistakes, and one of the things that really damages a lot of relationships is when you're in a relationship with someone who can't admit that they're wrong, or can't admit that they're imperfect, or that they made a mistake, and they just kind of dig their heels in. And so by not accepting responsibility for their part of whatever happened, because in most relationships, there's usually contributing factors on both parties' ends. And when one person isn't willing to do that, you've got one person coming to the middle and the other one standing on the other side of the chasm, who's not willing to do their part to build that bridge back. And so it's really difficult to heal relationships when someone is unwilling to admit that they could be wrong. And it's such a wonderful growing healing to be able to say, and maturity, it's a real sign of maturity to be able to say, I accept that I made a mistake here and I apologize for that. And yeah, that's a great thing to model for kids.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Jody, just to switch gears slightly, I wanted to ask you a question because I'm very curious about your answer. I always ask about the autonomy of a mom and how maintaining that, do you believe that's a good thing for her and her children? And if yes, how so?
My answers will always come down to the word balance. I actually coined the term balanced parenting style when I came up with my own unique way of presenting parenting styles. And I do want to cover parenting styles a little bit while we're talking, because they really are based on personality traits. So I would say it's all a matter of balance. And so to answer your question, if you're totally autonomous and you're not there for your child, then, and you only put your needs above your child's, then your child doesn't get what they need. Likewise, if you put your child's needs above yours all the time, you never fill your cup, then you're doing a disservice to yourself, which indirectly also then does a disservice to children and can end up leading to a more permissive parenting style of kind of waiting on children hand and foot and giving them everything they want, which ends up developing a sense of entitlement, quote, spoiled brats, that kind of more extreme parenting style in that direction. The other direction is the direction where the perfectionism comes in, of being more on the rigid side, not so much harsh. The all the way in that direction would be like a power patrol that uses power and fear to control. The perfectionistic supervisor is still outside the balance zone because they are still seeking control. They're just using things like perfectionism, guilt trips, super organization, micromanagement, looking over kids' shoulders, constant correction to make their kids turn out the way they think they should turn out. So it's still on the controlling side. It's viewed as more positive because it doesn't have that negative harshness that a lot of parents are wanting to get away from, but it's also not going to the opposite extreme. So balanced parenting, and actually those 5 styles of parenting, there's that power patrol on the perfectionistic supervisor on the controlling side. On the permissive side, there's the overindulger who's gives everything on the silver platter. And then there's the avoider who just kind of sticks their head in the sand, says, oh, kids will figure out how to raise themselves. All you need is love. And that's all I have to do. And I'm not really very involved. And there might even be like emotional disconnection. And that's probably one of the more damaging because kids just have nothing. It's really just kind of up to them. So being in the balance zone, take some of the positive qualities. The power patrol is a great leader, but you don't need to be a dictator. So in balance zone, you can be a great leader, but you lead by example. You engage your children in cooperating and being part of a team. There's mutual respect. Everybody's rights are respected. And we don't expect perfection from them, and we don't expect perfection from us. So our personality really does play into our role as a parent. And so that's how we can stay balanced. We can seek excellence and doing our best without it having to be perfect.
Oh, I like that. That's a great division. You know what I'm saying? It's great to yes, still strive and to be the best you each day, and yet don't look for the perfectionism of it.
Yeah, because honestly, you're never going to reach perfection. You really won't.
No.
My dad's a professional artist, and I don't care what beautiful artwork he does, no matter how many national awards it gets, he will find something in it that could still be improved. Like, that's just kind of how we are. And with ourselves, we always tend to look at what needs improved. But if we can take a look and be strengths-based, what are our strengths and what do we have, you're wording it superpowers, like what is it that we have to build on? And then just like you say, continually do your best to show up as your best you. But, we can all relate to, there are days where we show up and the best we could do that day, we know isn't our best us. But that day, that was the best we could do. And kids have days like that too, and for us to say, did you do your best? Well, that day I did, and sometimes your best, isn't your best that you've ever done, but it was the best that you could do that day. And so what can you learn from that? That's part of our growth and our maturity too.
Right. And just let's touch a little bit. I know you have some things you want to share, and I want to make sure we have space for that. But I just want to touch on one thing. When we talk about perfectionism versus confidence, I think of perfectionism as wearing me out.
Yeah, it will.
Exhausted. Yeah. So how would you speak to the confidence side of it?
Confidence is a direct result of self-esteem, of having positive self-esteem. And self-esteem is different from self-image. So self-esteem is how you feel about yourself, your worth as a human being. And it's your own self-assessment of how you feel about yourself. Self-image is how you think you appear to other people. And it's very much dependent upon pleasing others and more on the external and meeting other people's expectations, which is where perfectionism comes in. The confidence comes more in the self-esteem. Confidence is also different than ego esteem. Egotism being more cocky, thinking you're better than other people, and you build yourself up by putting other people down. And even in the self-esteem research, there's a lot of confusion among those three definitions, that there'll be even research projects that say, bullies have high self-esteem. No, they don't. If you specify the difference between those things, cocky, that's the ego esteem. Confidence is a direct reflection of an internal self-esteem. Not that you think you're better than others, but that you're a worthwhile person. You might not be the prettiest, you might not be the most popular, but you know that you're a good person, you love yourself, and you know you're lovable. And that's where confidence is a natural outgrowing of that. It's a calm confidence as opposed to cocky's kind of egotistical and more aggressive.
Yeah, kind of like you know who you are.
Yeah, in a real calm, accepting, loving kind of a way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Which really sounds very attractive.
Certainly a lot that doesn't wear you out. In fact, it builds you up as opposed to wearing you out.
And I imagine it builds up the people around you when you think about that, because then you also honor others and their beauty and their abilities. You can honor others as much as you can honor yourself and lift everyone up that way.
Absolutely. And by acknowledging those internal qualities instead of you make me happy when you do such and such, which is more of that pressure to please me, it builds self-image, people pleasing as opposed to internal. But of, how do you feel about how you did? And wow, I noticed, you just look so confident when you were up there, or, it was really enjoyable how you, and then using more descriptive encouragement that focuses on internal qualities rather than pleasing people will help build that confidence and self-esteem.
Love that you shared that. Thank you so much. Now, I know you have stuff to share with us before we get off, so please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had mentioned the parenting styles, and in my mind, I'm kind of picturing the scale that I use on my presentations, and I'm sure that some parents are kind of wondering, well, I wonder what style I am, and tell me more about the styles. So I do have a free quiz, a parenting style quiz at my website. So if you go to parentstoolshop.com/quiz, it will take you there. There's an optional opt-in if you want that part of the book, that part of the chapter that explains it more, you can, but the quiz is right there. And this isn't a scientific assessment. This is just kind of a friendly quiz to kind of help you self-assess where you might be. And then I also have, if anybody is interested and wants to kind of print out an affirmation, in chapter 1 of my book, The Parents Toolshop, I have a declaration of imperfection. And if it might take a minute to read. If you would like for me to read it, I can. And then if folks go to parentstoolshop.com/I am imperfect. You can do it with hyphens between each word or no hyphens. However you write I am imperfect, it should bring you to this, it's an image, and you can print that out and you can post it next to your desk or whatever to help you begin or continue your recovery from perfectionism.
Oh, beautiful. Yes, I would love, I'm sure our listeners would love to hear this affirmation.
Okay. So I'll read it slowly, and maybe if you kind of repeat after yourselves a little bit, I won't go real fast. I now allow myself to be an imperfect parent, one who makes mistakes and is sometimes wrong. I know I have made mistakes in the past and am sure to make more in the future, and that's okay. While I'm not happy about my mistakes, I'm not afraid of them. Instead, I strive to learn what I can from the experience to improve myself in the future. When I catch a mistake, I correct myself respectfully. I pick myself up and don't put myself down. As I become a better and better parent, I won't make the same mistakes too often, but I still won't be a perfect parent. And that's okay, because my goal is continual improvement.
Oh, very nice.
And I will just add one last statement, and that is, honestly, kids don't want perfect parents. I know kids are always pointing out like what you did wrong, and they're always correcting you, but honestly, kids don't want perfect parents. The older they get, the more they value you being honest and transparent and imperfect, and modeling for them how to be confident in spite of your imperfections. So there are many gifts for embracing our imperfection and celebrating it in our children while still encouraging them to do their best.
Oh, this is really, really beautiful. Jody, thank you so much for being a guest on the show and for sharing these wonderful insights.
Well, you are very welcome, and thank you for inviting me. And we had a little chat before just even deciding what we were going to talk about, and that was just in itself kind of an inspiring conversation that we were like, yeah, let's talk about that. So I appreciate your kind of picking the topic, because I got a whole bunch of stuff up here in this head. So this is really fun. I got a whole bunch of stuff. So this was great. Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll have you back, for some of the other topics.
I'm always here.
So please share with everyone again where they can find your website, just so that we're
sure. It's Parents with an S, Parents Tool Shop, and it's all one word, parentstoolshop.com. And then if you put that / after it, it's the quiz is that / quiz. The declaration of imperfection is / I am imperfect, with or without hyphens between the words. So parentstoolshop.com. And I'm on Facebook and all that. I've got a group on Facebook, and I train foster parents. So you can also do Parents Tool Shop and Foster Parents Tool Shop and all that on Facebook too. So just connect with me. I look forward to getting to know everyone who's listening.
Yes, thank you so much, Jody. And thank you, everyone who's listening. We really appreciate you being here. And I just want to say to you, mamas out there, love yourselves for the treasures that you are. You are already the perfect parent for your children, even though you're not perfect, don't get me wrong,
right.
But you are the parent that is designed to work with this child, and have confidence in that. Have confidence in yourself, and know that along the journey, beautiful things are going to come out of it as you both grow and learn. So I love you all. Well, go ahead, Jody.
Which is why imperfection is what's perfect.
Yes. So
it is perfect.
Right? It is perfect, right?
It is perfect.
For the purpose. That's what I always like to say, right?
Yes.
So parent with confidence versus perfectionism, and enjoy the journey. I love you all. Till next time. See you then. Take care.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz today.